Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is V Price and today we are talking about the title. What does it say? Yeah, this video is for my anxious girlies and guys. This video is for my anxious girlies and guys. Listen, I said in a couple videos ago I was diagnosed with anxiety. I'm not surprised. I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. Yeah, so because of that, I live with it every single day. There's certain situations where I feel a lot more anxious than others. And there's certain situations that I didn't even know I was gonna be anxious about, but I'm anxious about, right? So being an anxious person and living with anxiety, the thing that I've noticed is I have to find ways to self-soothe. My husband, fantastic, he's great, but he can't be my therapist, my partner in life, my best friend, and a million and one things at once. He can't be everything for me. He is a lot of things for me, and he means almost everything to me, but he cannot do everything for me. He cannot be everything for me. So living with anxiety and also having a personality where I kind of want to do it myself. I kind of want to figure things out on my own. I really have to find ways to self-soothe. And for me, these are things that I've done, that I do almost on a daily basis if I have to, if I'm really anxious, that help me figure out what's going on, back to a safe place, back to like a grounding space where I'm like, okay, it's okay, we're okay, everything's gonna be okay, right? And these are the things. So first things first, when I'm trying to lessen my anxiety or lessen the feeling of being anxious in a situation, is trying to separate my facts from my feelings. The facts are A through D and the feelings are D through Z, whatever it is, like figuring out what are the facts of the situation? What are the actual undeniable truths about what's going on right now? And then how do I feel about those truths? Because sometimes things get blurred. At least for me, like things get very blurred when I'm anxious. I really start to get in a place where everything feels like it's crumbling down. I just allow my feelings to just take me on a trip, child. And half the time, most of the things that I'm actually anxious about have a root cause and have an ending point. You don't, at least for me, I don't have to be anxious all day long. It has a beginning and it has an end. Either I was triggered or a thought or something I saw, something that I was listening to, then brought on an emotion that makes me feel a lot more worrisome, a lot more concerned than I usually am. And another thing is I'm very clear on who I am just like normally. Like I know who Viviani is without being anxious, and I know who she is when she is anxious. Like I'm very fully aware. So when I am anxious, not only do I know I'm feeling anxiety, I also understand that there are undeniable truths and then there are feelings. Right? So when I start to do that separation process, I don't usually do it immediately, but I get there. And once I get there, I try to literally just sit in that. Sit in the facts. Sit in the undeniable truths. And then we'll focus on why you're feeling that way. So separating my facts from the feelings are one of the things that I think really get me back to feeling better about whatever that's causing the anxiety at that moment in time.
Hey guys, I just wanted to pop in here to say another thing that I do whenever I do get a little bit anxious is I take deep breaths. Deep breaths literally mean taking your time inhaling and exhaling. What I do is I inhale at a slow pace that I usually count. So I usually count to like 5 or like 7, and then I breathe out at that same number or that same pace. That is how my deep breathing techniques actually are implemented when I am feeling anxious. So I just wanted to say that. Back to regular scheduled programming.
I have been journaling since I was about, like seriously and intently, since I was probably in the 5th grade. My 5th grade teacher changed my life. Like Miss Slater, if you out there, girl, and she knows this. I actually saw her after I graduated, obviously 5th grade, and when I was in college, and I was like, I heard her voice. I was working in a retail store and I heard her voice talking, and I was like, Miss Slater? And she was like, Viviani! Like, she's such a bubbly person. So she was like, oh my God, like you work here? I'm like, yes, I do. And I told her then, like, she changed my life. She was the first teacher ever that I had that really helped me deal with whatever I was going through. And one of the things that she suggested to me at the time was journaling. Like, take your time and journal, write down how you feel. And sometimes when I'm not as anxious, when I'm not feeling super out of myself, right, I can take the moment to sit. Because when I'm anxious, I'm also like kind of, I don't know how to describe it. Like I'm a busybody. Like I'm just really like moving. I feel like I'm freaking going crazy. Like how you feel like on pre-workout when you're not doing anything with the pre-workout. If you ever try to like take pre-workout and then you have a moment where you're actually not working out and you feel it ramping up and you're kind of like jittery, That's how I feel when I'm kind of anxious. So when I'm not super jittery, I'll journal. Like I'll take a moment and be like, you know what? I'm feeling kind of off today. Let me take this journal out and figure out what's going on. Let me write down what's going on so I can understand maybe how I feel a little bit better. Similar to journaling, therapy, obviously, talking to somebody that's a safe place, like finding other ways to express how you're feeling really clarifies the feeling. Because sometimes when it's stuck up here, you can't really figure out what's going on. Like it honestly feels like there's so many things happening at once, like there's like a million voices at once. But when you separate things, like either having a therapist or journaling or finding a way to just talk about it in a free place where it doesn't exist only in your head, really, I feel like what has done wonders for me. Like I have a bunch of journals, actually. I have multiple journals and I've been doing it and on and off since 5th grade, but like I do it, especially when I need it. There was a point in time where I used to write every day. There was a point in time in my life where I thought I was gonna be a writer. It's a fun fact. But yeah, I do it very often. And the reason why I do that is to help me feel a little bit more aware of what's going on. Because the lack of self-awareness for me is sometimes what brings on anxiety. Like you're not even aware of yourself enough to be like, all right, I know what's happening. Like if you don't know what's going on, that can also make you feel like in that confusion, it can make you feel a lot worse than you think. Do you get what I mean? So like journaling, separating the feeling itself and putting it elsewhere, putting it out in the ethos and being like, you know what, this is what's going on. And even if you don't get immediate clarity, you will eventually get to a place where you're like, oh, okay, this kind of makes a lot of sense. Like now I feel like I know what's going on. And if I know what's going on, I can find a solution and implement that accordingly. Focusing on what you can control. I realize that I can easily, again, make my feelings take me one way or another. And if you haven't watched my managing emotions video, what are you doing? Like definitely like, comment, and subscribe. Not only on that video, but this one as well. But in that video, I dive a little bit deeper on how I manage my emotions, what managing my emotions actually looks like, right? And not allowing my feelings to take me down an entire lane that I did not want to go down, right? So focusing on what I can control. If I want to be sad, I can listen to sad music. I can watch sad stuff. If I want to be, I'm not saying if I want to be happy, but like if I don't want to feel, if I'm feeling anxious already, why am I going to add more ingredients to keep me anxious? I don't want to be feeling anxious. And that's another thing. Don't be addicted to feeling the same things that you've always felt because this is just your norm. If you're normally an anxious person, you're like, oh, this is just who I am. And you just want to keep feeling that way because it's just what you know and you're more comfortable in the anxiety than without the anxiety because maybe the silence can cause a whole different level of anxiety. Like that's also not good either. Don't use it as a way to disassociate yourself from the reality that is, you don't have to feel that way. You do not have to feel anxious. It is not the only way of existing. And the sad music, the sad shows, the sad TikToks, whatever it is, that is also adding to your anxiety. So switching that up because that's what you can control. So when I'm feeling kind of down, I put on my Vibes playlist. I have a playlist called Vibes. I'm Haitian. So I have a lot of my favorite Haitian songs on there. I have a lot of my favorite African artists are on there. There's some Hispanic artists in there as well because I am Caribbean, so you know, habla español un poquito. Like there's a little bit of spice in there. I don't speak Spanish well, but there's a little bit of that in there, and that playlist always gets me in a good mood. I created it for that reason. I created it for the reason of those days where I really feel in a funk. Sometimes it could be a little bit of a distraction because then I feel too good, but like I'd be like, okay, now I'm happy again. So let's figure out what we're gonna do today. Like let's go to Walmart and spend $1 million. Like anyway, that's besides the point. The point that I'm making though is I have things in place for the days that I know I might feel a little bit more anxious, for the moments that I am actually anxious, to get me out of that feeling. I also use my stimuli to help me not continue to feel that feeling because I don't want to be anxious in the first place. To be honest with you, when I found out that I was anxious, I was generalized anxiety disorder, I was diagnosed with that, I was kind of like, you know what? I don't believe that that's real, child. Like, obviously, getting the diagnosis made it very clear to me because there's just things that just didn't click for me. And I was still very like, what is going on? So there was a sense of clarity that came with it, but it was also a sense of rejection too. Because I'm like, that may be what it is on paper and that may be what it is in general, regardless if it's a therapist's office or a psychiatrist's office or just whatever people ask you, like, what is do you have blank, blank, blank? Like, yeah, whatever. But there's a sense of like, I'm gonna find my coping mechanisms to make this make sense. So these are the things, like focusing on what you can control. That stimuli, when you're sad or when you're anxious and you start doing the things that add to it, honestly, it can easily, at least for me, it can lead me into an anxiety attack or a panic attack, because I've had both. And I cannot stand those. Like those onset ones, especially when I feel like I don't know what happened. Like, why am I feeling like this? Like, it's a whirlwind? Yeah, no. So controlling that stimuli and getting me back to a place where I feel less anxious, those things, the music, the shows, like paying attention to what you're listening to and what you're watching, what you're consuming can definitely add to that anxiety. It may not seem, it seems so simple, right? Like, oh, journal, oh, focus on what you can control. But when you're in that moment and when it really feels like you're in the blender of emotions where you don't know what to do and it's just taking you and you're ripping in the sides and whatever, like, you change a couple of those things, you put a couple of things in place, and that's how you really go, all right, I'm actually out of the blender now. I can turn off the blender and put the blender away. I can control this a little bit better than I thought I can. That's what this is all about. The help that you don't think you need. You know what I mean? A clean space. Listen to me. I did not grow up in the most luxurious spaces. Like, my mom was a single mom. My dad, got remarried, and very humble beginnings. Like, everybody didn't have their own room. Like, we all kind of had to figure out how we lived together in harmony or whatever, right? And we were very messy. My sisters and I are all 1 year apart. I have a lot of siblings. I don't want to break this down every single time, but if you don't know what I'm talking about, watch a couple videos. It's explained. My sisters and I have 2 sisters that have the same mom and dad, and we're 1 year apart. And we used to share a room, and all of us have different cleaning habits. And I think all of us have different cleaning habits for multiple reasons. At one point, I was a stickler to nobody like sitting on my bed. Don't sit on my bed. Don't sit on my bed. My bed is always made. It was always made when I was like a teenager. And I hated when people sat on my bed because it had the little booty mark and there's a little dip. I ain't like that. I want my bed to be crisp until my booty mark is back in the bed, right? A clean space really affects your mental health when you're anxious. That anxiety kicks in. I honestly can tell when I'm a little bit more anxious when I start to notice things that I usually know that I keep tidy are no longer tidy. Clean it up. Clean it up. I also find cleaning very therapeutic. I'm one of those people that I love to fold things in a specific way. I also have a retail background, so you have to fold a lot. But even still, like, I love to fold things in a specific way. I like to clean things up. I will get into my baseboards if I'm anxious, and I will clean them up and wipe them down if I'm really anxious. And honestly, it just brings me back to like, okay, a clean space. I'm feeling a little bit better. I can breathe now. When there's clutter and when there's a bunch of things, or I'm starting to notice a bunch of little things all over the place, no, clean up. A clean space does wonders for your mental health, especially when you're anxious, at least for me. When I clean my area up, when I'm anxious, the first thing I do, I clean. Whatever it is, because I don't really have a lot of things that are always unkept, but like, let's say for example, I'm doing laundry and I forgot to put clothes away and I just see there's like a mountain of clothes in my dryer. We're folding it right now. It's time to fold them. Or I wake up and my bed's not made. Okay, we're just gonna make the bed. We're just gonna make the bed because I'm anxious right now. I just need things to look a little less disjointed and disheveled. I need things to look a little bit more tidy. And as I go into each room and they're more tidy, I feel a little bit less anxious because now I'm seeing, okay, there's a little bit of organization here. I can deal with that. I can work with that. I can't work with the mess. So cleaning up, clean up, clean up. I feel like I'm a teacher, but like, yeah, a clean space really helps promote a clean mind or a clear mind. Maybe not a clean one, child. A clear mind for sure. Ask yourself questions to get to the root of the anxiety. I felt like for a very long time I would be feeling something. I'm like, I don't know why I'm feeling this way. I just feel this way. Oh, I'm in a funk today. I don't know why. I don't know why this. I don't know why that. Like, no, you do know. You do know. You need to ask yourself those questions, especially when you're probably not as anxious. Like, asking yourself questions is probably after you're out of the anxious space and you're able to dissect it a little bit better. Like, when you're able to dissect that feeling, you're like, oh, okay, so let me figure out why I was feeling this way. Oh, did something happen? Did somebody say something? Did that statement do something to my mental health? Like, to my mental space? Was I triggered? What was the thing? And when you start to ask yourselves questions and you start to get very clear on your triggers, you can heal those triggers and no longer feel them. I'm very big on that. You do not have to feel the triggers. You do not have to be triggered and be like, oh, you know what? I'm definitely triggered this time. I don't know what to do. I'm just gonna feel this feeling and continue feeling this feeling. Like, there's no reason for that. Ask yourself the questions. Once you're out of that anxious space, take time to really reflect. That reflection process will really do wonders for how you respond to it if it happens again. And if it never happens again, then you have something that you checked off that no longer bothers you. Because a lot of things bother us. There's a lot of things that affect us on a daily basis. So when you're going through that process, just take your time to reflect, and hopefully, obviously these steps aren't in order, placing them in the order that you would like to help get you out of that. These are the things that I do. These are the things that I think help. I am not here to diagnose you. I'm just here to tell you what things that help me, and hopefully they help you as well. If you like this video, thank you for watching. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I will catch you next week in the next video.